My concept is basically like so that the eco museum will also create opportunities not just for the young generation but also for academicians. They can come and contribute the art of mask making, which is going nearby to extinction. So these kind of art can actually be protected through various kind of activities like exhibitions, for that matter, or workshops, or virtual tours or walkthroughs. So these kind of activities through the concept of eco museum will actually help them to preserve not only their culture but also the environment.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Breaking Silos Collective, the series where we show you why breaking silos matters and how you can do it. My name is Sophia Jamil, and I am the East West Center's Experiential Professional Development Ambassador for Southeast Asia and the co-host of this special Breaking Silos edition with the Innovation for Sustainable Development Fellows. As mentioned in the introduction, this series is done in collaboration with the East West Center in Hawaii. And our episode for today is 1 out of 15 episodes where we will be speaking with the East West Center's 2021 Innovation for Sustainable Development Fellows to know more about their innovative projects. And these fellows are young professionals and EWC alumni, all under the age of 40. And they come from a various range of sectors: the arts, the environment, education, health, and disaster resilience. And they come from various countries worldwide. So I'm very happy today to have with me Namrata from Assam, India, to tell us more about her project, the Majuli Exhibit, which explores the concept of ecotourism that's still an evolving cultural phenomenon in India. So a bit about Namrata. She has a master's degree in history from the University of Delhi and in museology from the National Museum Institute in New Delhi. Her professional interests include histories of memories, critical engagement with tangible and intangible heritages, and oral narratives of modern South Asia. She was born and brought up in Assam, one of the states in India's northeast. She has been working as a project curator at the Assam State Museum in Guwahati, and her responsibilities included exhibition and gallery development, which entails natural history, textiles, and ethnographic galleries. She also oversaw educational activities and events, international exhibitions, developing content and documentation, and providing guided tours for official dignitaries visiting the museum. She was previously with the Nehru Memorial Museum and Library in New Delhi as an education assistant, and she had also worked with the Directorate of Archaeology for the government of Assam as a research assistant. She visited numerous excavation sites in the state of Assam for on-site documentation, including the 7th to 9th century stone sculptures in Deopahar Archaeological Park in Numaligarh. And she was also involved with designing the display of Madan Kamdev, a 9th to 10th century archaeological site renowned for its erotic art. Interesting. She was also involved in facilitating the British Museum's International Training Program plus workshop titled Museums and Education, which was held in Mumbai. So that's a lot of experience in archaeological historical work in India. Very fascinating, Namrata. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, thanks. Let's start off by getting to know more about what has driven you to start the Majuli Exhibit project, and what significance does an eco museum have in terms of sustainable development?
Yeah. Since I'm a museum professional, I'm based in Assam. I have been working as a project curator at Assam State Museum. So, having worked in the field of museology for so many years, I thought of exploring more. And then I got a chance to connect with Lens by Sumita. And then Sumita is also an alumni of East West Center. So that's how we got to connect with him. And then we spoke very detailed about the concept of Majuli, the river island, and also about the concept of eco museum. And then I also saw that East West Center offers a lot of innovative projects for a short period of time or for longer period of time. So that really fascinated me. So both me and Sumita, we thought that we should apply for something which is for sustainable development so that I can contribute for my home institution or for my region. So that's how it really driven me to this project. And having said that, this project, while I applied, I saw that it was for 5 months. And for somebody who has already been working in an organization, I think these short-term projects were really doable. And that's why also I thought that, I should definitely apply for this. And basically, if we talk about like the significance of eco museum in sustainable development, we see that we have to know first what is an eco museum. So an eco museum is basically a museum which is focused on identity of a place, and it is largely based on local communities of that particular place. And it is still a very evolving phenomena in my country, and it is a very much alien subject to my region, Assam. So I thought that, why not try to, since I'm from the museum background, why not just try to educate or just try to make this term something which is relevant to the local communities, because I thought Majuli, it's the largest river island in the world, and the concept of eco museum would be very relevant to the island itself, or bringing out the island stories through this museum. And if we talk about sustainable development, we see that both eco museum can be called a model of sustainable development because it also serves the purpose of sustainability. So if we talk about both eco museum, also in sustainable development, we see that we talk about preservation of the environment, we talk about natural resources, preservation of natural resources, and we also talk about socio-economic equity. So I think that's how, both of them are correlated and interrelated. And I think it is also one of the models of sustainability. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. And would the Majuli exhibit be in the museum in Assam, or are there other ways that you would display this sort of exhibit?
No, like basically, while visiting the field, I would know that, the place is a isolated place. We reach Mājuli through ferries, which has their own timings, and because of COVID, and because even now, like it's the monsoon, and they have flood alerts. So most of the time, it is not very reachable by the general public. So of course, I was thinking about exploring the place so that I can make a trail of museums in and around the island. But it would also, serve the purpose of making maybe a VR, virtual reality, or something like a digital platform, like for a virtual walkthrough for the wider audiences, so that it can explore, what is there in the island itself, or their stories to the wider audience. Yeah.
Interesting. And how would you go about getting participation from the local communities, especially in terms of telling them that doing this project would help their welfare and economic development?
Yes. So basically, the communities which resides there are, if they are called the Mishing community or the Diori communities, and they have, their communities are small communities which do not really get the platform, like suppose a global platform to really showcase, their idea about their art and culture, their idea, what they think, what they want in a place like museum. So this kind of initiative would actually help them to speak up, or to it will also lead to community participation basically, and it will let them it's also about sustainability of voices, giving them a voice to really come out and represent themselves in a place like museum. And this kind of idea can actually lead to tourism, and it will also lead them to employment opportunities, like especially amongst youths, because if supposedly we get to implement this idea in a full-fledged project, and we can actually make a trail out of all those museums which are already existing there, or the performing arts activities. They are very rich in art of mask making, pottery, and boat making. So these kind of things, if we can actually document and give them a space for a trail or for a walkthrough for tourists or other researchers or academicians, I think we will also give them a place where they will have a sense of pride for themselves. They can nurture a sense of pride for their communities, and they will also if by employment opportunities, I mean to say that, the young generation, they can actually learn about their history and culture, who otherwise were not interested, and they would get a chance to speak to the audiences or the visitors they come up with. So these kind of opportunities, and also like the local businesses which are still not getting that much of attention. I think those things will also come up when there are a lot of people going there, meeting them, and there is exchange of skills and knowledge and ideas amongst them. Yeah.
So the eco museum concept would be a sub portion of wider ecotourism. You say so?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What sort of medium to long term impact do you think the project will have for Assam? I think you've partly mentioned it, that it's about ecotourism, but any other specific medium to long impacts you think that it will benefit the state?
Yeah.
And particularly the Majuli communities.
Yeah, basically the Mājuli communities. I think these cultural venues will play a very vital role. And the other kind of long-term impact would be like, if I may say so, like, if I directly go to the field and I ask them that, can we really create an eco museum? Can you really do this or do that? We find that, these people, they already have a very struggle life. They have their everyday problems. So art and culture have remained a very neglected subject for them, or also for the visitors who have visited the island. So even a kind of consciousness, or a kind of awareness amongst the community, or kind of, a sense of like the idea of museum can actually imply some kind of positive impact in the longer run, as in to say, like, if there are collaborations with cultural institutions, or there are collaborations with global initiatives like this East-West Center, or even other initiatives. So these kind of collaborations can also help them generate funds or generate revenues with, so that they can be, they can have some kind of impact in the long run. So, and my concept is basically like, so that the eco museum will also create opportunities, not just for the young generation, but also for academicians. They can come and contribute the art of mask making, which is going nearby to extinction. So these kind of art can actually be protected through various kind of activities, like exhibitions for that matter, or workshops, or virtual tours, or walkthroughs. So these kind of activities through the concept of eco museum will actually help them to preserve not only their culture but also the environment. The Majuli Island was the largest river island with 880 square kilometers, but it has lost to 553 square kilometers in 2014 last, because it is exposed to soil erosion for the annual floods which the people go through. So, before it is extinct, and before the culture and art and the collections which they have goes nearby to extinction, I think, some kind of awareness or some kind of consciousness is really required. And
I
this
guess
can be.
it's like a way of preserving your local traditions and local knowledge, which often just, because people are so busy with trying to get their
Yes,
bread and butter issues sorted out, they forget about the
true,
traditional knowledge.
true.
Um, I'm just thinking about, some other fieldwork experiences I've had in Indonesia, where because of the lack of economic opportunities, you see these
Yes.
people in these remote rural places moving out and
Mm.
trying to find jobs elsewhere. Does that happen with the
Yes.
people in Majuli as well?
Yes, definitely.
Mm,
Because, they have a struggle life every day. Like
mm,
they have to catch the ferry. They have to think about the preparation since the last night that tomorrow morning I have to catch the ferry. I have to reach the town, get my work done and come back. So these kind of struggle usually now in digital age, or, even for that matter, electricity or for internet connection, they really struggle, unlike us who are staying in the towns or the cities. So just to be just to everyone's wants to get a better education or better facilities. So that's how they also think about coming out of the island or doing something in the cities, on the towns nearby. But
mm,
I think the Majuli, recently, they also have a cultural university. It is a bigger university with good education and good faculty. So I think most of them are trying to, be there and be educated there itself
mm.
instead of coming out to major cities. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, it's creating regional, local opportunities for them, so that
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
you develop the local and
Yeah.
less areas that have not been given enough attention, basically.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm,
And like, even if it has a global recognition, but still, it's performing arts or it's art of traditional techniques, culture, cuisines. These things are really, getting like the sustenance is the need of the hour. So,
mm,
that is the thing which it really needs attention on. So even if it's getting a global recognition, why, people are not being able to really give much of attention or much of importance to the local art and culture. So it is also
mm.
about educating them. And another thing is like, we have a lot of international tourists there in the island, but
Okay.
just because of the language barrier, some people they can't really communicate, and most of them they it gets difficult for them to understand their language or understand each other, and that is also one of the problems. So even if we think that this local people can actually give heritage walks and tour guides, we also need to educate them so that they can speak some amount of English or some amount of a language so that they can communicate well. Yeah.
Right. So on that point about tourism, is it more
Yes.
international or domestic tourism to Majuli? Um,
It's a blend of both, actually, even domestic. If I talk about domestic travelers, then it is mostly the academicians and the researchers who really want to get their research done in the island. But mostly, yeah, international travelers are also often there, but it's seasonal. So even if they think of like, doing something with the international travelers, like some kind of revenue generation, or while they come and you show them around the museum, it's seasonal. So that's how there's a gap there, but otherwise it's a blend of both. Yeah.
mm,
And mostly domestic travelers are like academicians and researchers, and the communities are also kind like the local people in and around Assam also try to visit the island, and for maybe kind of not to really explore the art and culture, but during festivals, like if they
mm.
have to attend I think there is a Majuli music festival, so like the youths they go to attend the Majuli
Okay.
music festival, or there is traditional performing arts festival which is called Rah, which happens every November of so they go to attend that. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Oh, because I was going to ask between the domestic and international tourists, which group would have more interest in Majuli in the Majuli exhibit, you think? I mean, based on just what I'm hearing, like the people that go there, they have very different interests. Some go for the arts and the music festivals, some go for religious or cultural festivals,
Yes.
some go for academic work, and the tourists go there just to relax. Um, how do you think they will respond to the Majuli exhibit, do you think?
I am very hopeful that they are going to respond it really good, because for the international travelers, of course, they will be interested, because it will be a very new concept for them to explore some kind of a museum trail inside the island. It will be in a more organized way. Otherwise, they really have to, maybe through some local guides, they have to identify the place where they have to visit, or which collection or which satra they have to visit. But now it will be in a more organized way for them. So I think it will really help them, and they will really be interested. And the other groups would be like the researchers and academicians for sure, and also the local people, I think, because I don't think so they were represented in a space like museum before. So if they actually, the locals, the communities are also involved in their curation, they can co-curate with the curators, I think they will be very much interested. And if there are institutions like museums, like a set institution or cultural institution or educational institution, there will also be opportunities for young professionals who can apply, and they can be part of the uh, project. So these kind of opportunities will really interest them. But again, there is another thing that as a museum we should also try to create something which is more interactive and engaging. And if there is something kind of a new engagement for them, then they will definitely be interested. Like, I think the music festival itself, it attracts the younger audiences. So these kind of activities should be conducted by the museums or the cultural institutions, so that they can actually bring in more and more younger audience to the museums. Yeah.
That leads to a couple of questions that two of your counterparts in the Innovation Fellows program have.
Yeah.
Musawir from Indonesia asks, how do you attract millennials and younger audiences to the museum? What are the tools and tactics used to attract new visitors in the digital age? And Makro from Bangladesh also asks, how easy or difficult is it to get youths more interested in their own cultural heritage through museums?
Yes. So again, I think it will be the same answer. We know that India is not a museum going nation. We have very less number of people who would be really interested to enter a museum. And this is not only because the it's the mindset of the people, but it is also the institutions who have equal responsibility to create something which is engaging and interactive for them. So as a museum, we really sometimes fail to bring to set our target audience and to bring in something which is interactive and which is engaging, so that we can bring in more and more visitors. So, but another thing, the biggest challenge there is not only bringing them inside the museum and making them engaged, but it is also about funds. We have a lot of funds crunch, and basically because of the COVID situation, like regional museums like ours, the Assam State Museum, we really had to cut down on many things, on like on maintenance or on documentation, or also maybe on the attention or housekeeping of objects and collections. So while you really keep your attention on the objects, you tend to neglect the other part of it, so that the visitors will keep coming, or how to really make them engagement. So the tools and techniques in modern days are obviously digital interfaces, which people really get attracted to, interactive interfaces. And also workshops that really makes everybody engaging, and also hands-on experiences. By hands-on experiences, I mean to say, while I visited the British Museum, they have a table which is called the hands-on table, and they have real objects. Like, they select the B category, B plus or C plus category objects, 2, 3, 4 different types of, and they make the visitors actually hold them. And while they hold it and they try to, explore the museums, because, museums, while we enter, we see every board which says do not touch, do not touch. And then you find a space inside a museum which actually says touch, you can touch this object. So that becomes really fascinating, even for the younger people and also for children for that matter, because they really feel like touching it and holding it. So when you have 18th century objects or 7th century objects actually in your hands, you're holding them and you're trying to explore it, I think that becomes really fascinating for many audiences. Even I was very fascinated while I visited and I tried to touch those objects. So definitely this kind of things can be incorporated in museums and other virtual walkthroughs or even interactive session, even seminars for that matter. But sometimes it is difficult for people to be, the monotonous things about listening to someone can get a little bit tricky. But, other kind of interaction, or also making them co-curators with you and making them participate in the curation. So these kind of engagements, I think, can really attract the younger audiences. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about like when I go to some of the museums in Singapore, you have the children will always have some activity worksheet that they have to fill up. Go
Yes.
here, go there. So that aspect already, I think, is a good way of engaging the students. Like
Definitely.
at a younger age as well. They may
Yeah.
not be listening to the long seminars
Yeah.
or reading the board, but when they're
Yes.
forced to find questions and find answers,
Yes.
that gets them more engaged.
Yes. Treasure hunts for that matter. It's very common with
Mm.
children. We do that. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that way they also, they get to see those objects, because some, like all the museums, they do not really curate in a certain way that all the star objects are there in front of you. So when somebody gives you a treasure hunt, you tend to also go to places, to the corners of the room or of the gallery, to actually see those objects. So the objects which are actually neglected by the audience otherwise could actually be tracked or seen by the audience if you give them some kind of treasure hunts or some kind of trivia for that matter. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Um, I had a question about the experiential part about touching and feeling artifacts. So how, I mean, and on the other hand, you have those museums that have traditionally said don't touch. So how do you strike that balance in ensuring that what's being touched doesn't get spoiled or tampered with by the visitors?
Yes, it's a very interesting question. I think generally we come with the notion that we can't really touch, and people really get intimidated while they enter a museum. They feel that okay, I must not touch this. Okay, I can't take a photograph here. So these kind of things, I think there should be something kind of an orientation while you enter the museum, so that people do not really get intimidated while you enter. You feel like you're just part of the institution, and you can just go and see your objects. But then again, while I mentioned about this hands-on desk, they particularly mention this, that those objects are not really fragile objects. Those are stone objects basically. I think the material really mattered, like what kind of objects you are really holding. And also those kind of objects were not A category objects, which are like really important, and which if it creates some damage, it can be really hampered to the institution. So they make it very clear while they actually make you hold those objects. And they also, like a museum professional, while we go to the store, we are given guidelines and trainings of how to really hold the object while we mark physically on those objects, or while we document, or while we photograph. So those kind of interaction with the audience is also important. It's not really that only if somebody has studied museology or somebody is a curator should know how to hold an object. But I think this kind of awareness or education should also given to the general public, so that they themselves get to know that these are the things I can touch, these are the things I must not touch. So these kind of awareness, I think a kind of a proper orientation is really required. Yeah.
Right. Interesting. Let's take another question from
Yeah.
one of the fellows. Let's go with Elton from the Philippines. He asks, in your guided tours, how do you narrate the exploitation of art and culture in history? And how do you address its modern approaches, especially in the digital age?
Yeah. I think with the term which he used, exploitation, it depends on the context of the guided tours. So sometimes what happens, it implies to appropriation. Like we see that a group of people, suppose designers, they are entering the textile gallery. They try to copy the motifs and they try to take photographs without anyone's consent, and they try to copy even the sculptures or any kind of collection. So those kind of things museums face in everyday life. And also we have copied objects which are used for illicit art traffic or which are used for auction. So these kind of things is really relevant, and we find it in our day-to-day museum life. And also, if you talk about the exploitation of art and culture, then it also depends on like the role of tourism in cultural institution. And by that I mean to say that, does tourism really hamper a cultural institution, or it also gives something in return? So I think a dialogue between tourism and a cultural institution is really required, and it's significant. It should have some kind of understanding between the both, which I mean that while I mention about my example, which is Majuli, we see that the island is isolated island. It is rich in its flora and fauna. Its environment is not really much hampered, and there are not many concrete buildings. Most of them we find it sanghor, which is with bamboo and cane, traditional houses where people live, and traditional attires mostly they wear, and traditional uh, life they try to live in. So sometimes these kind of things, while we try to preserve it, but we think that this also helps in tourism to generate economic development. We should also bring in a lot of um, opportunities for tourism. So that way, we also tend to exploit the place, because we bring in a lot of people. There will be a lot of commercial activities, or there will be a lot of development happening. Like suppose, we bring in a lot of tourists, we would like to make more hotels or more concrete structures to attract those visitors. So these kind of awareness. So by exploitation, I think that it also means like, whether we to keep a balance actually between the tourism and the cultural sector. And he also said about modern approaches in digital age. So modern approaches actually again would be the same, which is some kind of engagement with the tourists, some kind of awareness, some kind of orientation through
Right.
maybe I would not say seminars, but some kind of interaction with them so that they understand the value of it. And there are so many platforms in digital age. Like, I also heard about museums and terminals. We have some kind of pamphlets where these kind of things or these kind of collection data are actually given out in terminals inside the aircraft or maybe in the airport. So, there are so many people because tourists, if international tourists come, they would come from the airport, or even the domestic travelers in and around the state, they would come from the airport. So if we really give them pamphlets or some kind of videography, or, some kind of things going on, or even like the meal which they buy, if we just give a small pamphlet along with the meal, and, we tend to read it. We tend to read the magazines which are there in the aircraft. So these kind of platforms are actually relevant in digital age, if I may say so. Yeah.
Or even like, the screen, the TV, the personal screen that they have in their
Yes.
at their seat, have a
Yes.
channel on tourism
Yeah.
sites in India or in Assam,
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
already have so much eyeballs looking at it when they're flicking
Yeah.
through the channels. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's a
So
good
even if
one.
you
Mhm.
ignore it, you tend to see at least something. So something you will remember out of it.
Yeah.
And basically you see, you really remember. I think if you listen also, you might forget, but if you see something, you really remember well. So yeah, so these kind of
Yeah.
approaches can be incorporated. Yeah,
Yeah. Above that also needs a lot of collaboration and cooperation with a lot of
definitely,
other stakeholders. Might take a
definitely,
while, but definitely there is room to explore that as well.
definitely.
Okay, so we've got a couple other questions related to your experiences.
Yeah.
Makruf from Bangladesh asks, would you be able to share any incident or realization that made you feel that the project was making a difference and that made you happy?
Yeah. So, one project which is very close to my heart, which we have implemented in the State Museum, is it's on health and well-being. So basically, while I attended the international training program with the British Museum in 2018, we got a chance to explore many museums in and around UK. And I was based in Northern Ireland, Belfast, for 10 days, partner museum for a training program. And there, I have found that the Ulster Museum from Belfast, they do a lot of activities with senior citizens or people suffering from dementia or any kind of disease. And they really work on the concept of health and well-being. So while I came back to India, even when we fill up the form, we have to write, you go back and you contribute something to your home institution. So while I came back, I thought that, this concept it's something very new. And I think we should really, try to explore it in my museum. So I had a word with my director, and he was very supportive. And Assam State Museum, we actually collaborated with medical professionals. It is a trust called OncoCare. It's a trust which deals with cancer patients. So we have cancer patients coming in the museum, and we give them art therapy and music therapy. We also take them for free guided tours and virtual walkthroughs. And it's basically we waive the fees of the cancer patients who enters our state museum. It's free for them. And there are also sessions with the doctors. Every week we have doctors coming in, and they give them some kind of awareness or some kind of talks and sessions on breast cancer awareness or on different kinds of cancer. And we also have rallies and walkthroughs in and around the city about awareness of breast cancer or these kind of cancer diseases which people go through. And this was a very new concept. I think even any museum in the country did not really collaborate with medical professionals. So I think we were the first one to do that. So I think it is quite closer to my heart, and I would be
I,
happy to share this. Yeah.
yeah, I love that because that's exactly like breaking silos.
Yes.
You're bringing people to a museum, breaking the
Yes.
silos between medical world and the arts world, yeah,
Yes.
and historical world. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
yes, yeah. It's a very new target audience we have targeted on, because we do not really talk about doctors coming inside museum and doing something. So it was in collaboration with them. So it was quite special. And museums, role of museums in 21st century actually talks about that, health and well-being. And we also have many doctors abroad who prescribe patients to visit museums as a therapy. So I think if we can implement that in my region, or even talking, some doctor just mentioning that, why don't you just go and visit the museum if you're just feeling stressed or if you're feeling low. So we try to interact with those cancer survivors, and they said that it really makes them feel very stress free, and they are actually creating new bonds while they are meeting other survivors. They are creating new friendship, and they always look up to every weekend to come to the museum and interact with a new group, or make friends, or go back home. So it feels very nice that you somehow, even in small bit, you're trying to contribute a meaningful contribution to the society. Yeah.
Lovely, excellent. Oh, okay, one question from Soko from Mongolia. Please share with us a funny story when you've provided guided tours.
Yeah, that question was quite interesting. But I would like to mention that, humor is a thing which you know, we use while we communicate with someone, like a group of audience or a group of children. So basically, I can't really say one funny incident as such, but it gets sometimes funny that, you take a group, you talk about so many hilarious stories in and around the object that you tend to forget about mentioning the significance of those objects. So that really happens most of the time. So, and then later on you realize that these are the significance which I have missed out. So that happens with, I think, most of the times while we give guided tours or we give walkthroughs. Yeah.
But the people
But
still enjoy it anyway.
yeah, people still, and most of them, they get interested for the first 5-10 minutes, and then they just get lost. And so it's really important to actually crack jokes, or like not laugh at them but laugh with them, so that they get back to their attention.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right. That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so to kind of like round up our discussion about the project, you mentioned a bit of the challenges that COVID has faced. How else has how else has COVID affected your work, and potentially your ability to monitor the Majuli project? You think?
I think it has affected a lot because it's we are still under curfews and restrictions. We have inter-district restrictions, and I'm taking special permission, and I'm going to the field very soon, next week. And COVID, and even while at this time you visit the field, it happens that people already feel like getting isolated from you because you're traveling from somewhere, or they try to maintain a distance from you. So if you're talking about field work and you're not being able to interact with the people, then it gets difficult. And so just to make them feel comfortable about speaking up. And another thing, I think I have mentioned that the 5 months project really fascinated me of joining, but it is also a challenge on the other hand, because to create a rapport with the audience, with the communities, it takes a longer period of time, because the first time I visit them and I talk to them, they would not feel like opening up or talking about their challenges. They would say everything to be okay, this is nice, this is okay, yeah. But later on, eventually, when we try to create a rapport with the longer period of time you stay with the community, I think that really gives you the final outcome of how well your project would do. So because of COVID, I have already lost a lot of time for not visiting the field, because we were in complete lockdown, and now I have a very small amount of periods, but I would like to do my best and try to bring some positive outcome of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very challenging time for
Yes.
for moving around, but we try to do our best given the
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so like just a couple of final questions I ask people that come on the interviews. What does breaking silos mean to you, and what advice would you give someone who wants to break silos for sustainable development?
I think breaking silos, it means to think out of the box and to really come up with something which tries to give a meaningful contribution to the society or to the institution you're working with. And not as an advice, but I would like to say that these kind of initiatives really helps each other. Even like I have my counterparts who are from different countries, so like it will be a very good platform for exchange of ideas, exchange of knowledge, exchange of experiences for that matter. And also it will be a very meaningful exchange where we can learn from each other. And I think through my initiative, I have really definitely learned a new skill each and every day. I'm trying to deliver something, or in every deliverable, actually, it's a new skill learned through this project. So I think it's a very, positive feeling while you do something, because if you're happy doing something, I think that makes it a lot of difference. And one step multiplied by many actually makes a lot of change. Yeah.
And you always have to take the first step before you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any final thoughts or shout outs you would like to share with our viewers?
Basically, I'm really happy to be here, to be talking to you and sharing, whatever the experiences or the deliverables I have given through this initiative. And I can't wait to hit the field and actually bring a lot of positive outcomes from it. And I really look forward to my field trip, which I'm going very soon, like day after tomorrow or so. Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be very exciting to see, the more
Yes.
further progress after the field work, hopefully with
Yes.
less challenges along the way and the
Yeah.
people like open up more. But yeah,
Yes.
this is very exciting. And yeah, thank you, Namrata, for sharing
Thank
with
you.
us all this experience.
Yeah.
And thank you to our viewers for watching, and hope you found this to be an insightful episode. And if you'd like to know more about Namrata's work in the Majuli exhibit, do check out the links in the description below. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends to let them know more about Majuli Island and the natural beauty it has to offer. And so I think for me in Singapore, from Sophia Jamil in Singapore and Namrata Sarmah from India, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.